Alright, so here we are. I did modify some of my textures since the last time. I also have, a little actual rocket ship shape here, or missile shape. If I go to my rendering, you can see the different shape of the cloud there for that. Alright, so real quick to cover the texture on that. I still have the mapping here. You can see it's yellow to orange to this grayish color. And I can even probably make it a little bit darker on the backside. And then I have my transparency map, which is going from non-transparent to transparent. And then I also have down here under the transparency, I have a density map and a blob map. And what these allow you to do is have transparency kind of throughout the particles. So like each individual particle would have, instead of it being perfectly round, would have some sort of breakup to it. Okay, so if we look at this, you can see that there's definitely some extra detail happening inside here. So if I click on this arrow, I've mapped a cloud texture right to that. And if I go to the blob map, I've mapped a Brownian texture to that. And that's what gives me this nice coloration here. Okay. So it looks much better than it did in the previous one, which is super awesome. Alright, so I'm going to go through and just add some more texturing to this, and just obviously you're going to have a different texture than I have, but you can kind of follow along. I'm going to go to Amiya on this one, always X passes, and this will be planet texture. I'm just going to click on the map button and find a file. I've already brought one in. It just says planet. Nice brownish kind of planet here. Now as we're doing this, we're going to get in pretty close. And this thing's going to hit. So we couldn't be like right on the planet because we're just going to see like 6 pixels there. So one thing I may do on this is kind of assess where I actually need the texture. And then I can grab my UVs and just condense it into that area. Now I've actually probably grabbed the wrong ones. Let's see. Maya's thinking. Alright, so here we're back in the file after it crashed. And so I'm making my UVs bigger. Now it is going to create some repeating to this. So as far as a long shot goes, I couldn't create a long shot of this. But if my camera is going to be focused in here, look at how much nicer that texture is compared to where we were before. Okay, this is what it looked like before, kind of blocky and blah. And then make this huge, and then just adjust the positioning to find a nice area. And it just makes that whole scene a bit neater, a bit nicer to look at. Okay. Now again, can't do it from way back here without some fancy editing to this. There's several things that we could do to kind of adjust that. I could turn on mirroring. And now it kind of looks like it's supposed to be there, but still not really. We could also try staggering. That's not going to update in here, only when we render. Possibly if we change this to viewport 2.0, it might. Yeah, there we go. Alright. So obviously there's more stuff that we can do to this. We could also bring this file into Photoshop and do some airbrushing on the top and airbrushing on the bottom to adjust that. Okay, I'm going to go through that real quick just so you can see the process. Because when you deal with something that you want to be a huge texture, and you want it to be repeatable but not look like it, basically tileable is what we're after. It takes a little bit of time, but it definitely is worth the effort. Alright, so here we are in Photoshop with my file. And this is a panoramic. So basically what that means is that the left side here and the right side are going to tie together. If I go to Filter, Other, Offset, and I adjust my horizontal, you'll see that there isn't a seam. Okay, the seam's about here. It doesn't look like there's a seam at all. Okay, so just reset that to 0. However, if I go in the vertical, you'll see there definitely is a seam right there. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do is just offset it so I can see the seam. Just round this to 350, and then I can use my clone stamper to grab a piece of this and just start laying it on top of that. And what that's going to do is just help create a nice transition from top to bottom of this image, so that when it loops, we don't see a seam. So I'm just using my clone stamp and just stamping out. Now, it's a possibility that one of the other repair tools would work. But I like using the clone stamp because I have a lot more control over what I'm getting out of it. Okay, now I have to be careful I don't go too close to the edges, because then that's just going to introduce some tiling in that area. Okay, so I'm just going to be very careful, shrink my brush down some more, and then fill that area in. There we go. Alright, so now you can't really see a seam here. There are some landmarks I'm just going to kind of brush over. There we go. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to my filter, back to my other, back to my offset, and make this negative 350. And just to verify the vertical, or the horizontal one, yeah, I still don't see a seam there, so that's good. So we reset that to 0, hit OK. I'm just going to save the image as it is, go back into Maya, reload it, and you'll see that now we don't have any seams inside there. Now it does look a little bit soft in some of these areas, and you can actually kind of see a seam right here because I have stagger on still. So let me turn stagger off. There we go. Okay, so it does look a little bit softer in those areas, but it's definitely a lot better than it was before. Okay, so that's perfect. And I can even turn mirroring off. We don't need that anymore. And it looks much nicer now. Okay, so realistically I can take this thing, go to my UVs, make my UVs even bigger, and you can really start to see the pattern now that I've made it this big. Okay, so there is a limit that we can kind of push that to go. So let's say about there is good. Alright, so now we can get pretty close to this, not that close, we can see pixels. We can get about this close to it, and it still look pretty decent. Okay, so now our next stage in this is that we're just going to create a little camera move. Okay, so I'm just going to hit rewind and then save my work that I've done so far, and then hit play, and I want to watch it until it makes impact. Right there. Okay, so now that it's made impact, I'm going to set up my camera move for what this animation is going to be showing. So I want to have a spot here where I can see it kind of like this. Okay, if I go here, my trail and my debris in the background are just going to be kind of lost in each other. But doing that angle, I'll get some nice trails here. It'll hit the planet nicely, and I'll be able to see the little smoke plumes popping out. Okay, so I'm going to click on my camera, and I'm going to get my end camera. Okay, so I'm going to get my end position of this. Let's say there is good. Okay, so something like that. Let me turn on my resolution gate. Yeah, that should work. So I'm going to set a key for my camera here, and actually let me undo that. I'm going to set my focal length to be let's set it down first and take a look. Yeah, it's kind of stretching it out way too much. 120. I'm going to set it to 120. Kind of flatten it out a little bit more. You have to experiment with this just to see what's going to look good. So here it is at 20. It gives me a lot more depth. You can see that the rockets seem a bit further away from that. Once I start bumping this up to, let's say, 150, you'll see that they look like they're pretty much in the same plane. Those meteors are right there. So I don't want that. I liked it at 20 better, having that distance. Alright, so that's good. Alright, so I'm going to set a key there. Then I'm going to rewind it, hit play again. And I'm just seeing where they're coming in. Okay, they're coming in from up here. So I'm going to rewind it and then just maybe zoom out and back a little bit and set a key. I don't want to have a huge movement on it. Okay, you can see there's a nice movement here, there's a nice movement there. Let me grab my camera again, I think I'm going to reset this key to be just a bit lower. So now my keyframe disappeared. I think I'm going to keep it up here in the middle. There we go. And we make impact. Okay. So now we go to the graph editor. And with this camera selected, I'm going to delete the keys I don't need. I don't need any of the visibility or scales. So I can just marquee those and delete them. Here are the translates. I don't like to have keyframes at the beginning. Let me grab my rotates also. I don't like to have keyframes at the beginning or end be soft. I like to have them linear. Okay, and then these middle ones, those ones can be the spline ones. Now I'm also going to ensure that I don't have any big movements. If you look at this, there's a little movement here and then a big movement. Okay, if I go to my translate Z, it's pretty much the same. We're about, that's halfway mark, and it's pretty much the same movement. My rotate X is fine, Y and Z are all fine. So it's just this Y here that kind of bothers me. So what I'm going to do is just kind of go to the move tool, just pull that down, maybe adjust this a little bit. I just don't want it to seem like there's a change in speed. Okay, so let's see what that's going to look like. And I'm watching when it hits this mark for a change in speed, and I didn't see one. Okay, that's exactly what I want to happen. And I think I'll even scoot this down a little bit more. Go back to my graph editor. And that's just going to be in the translate Y, really, is where I move that. Make sure all these end keyframes are linear. Make sure all these middle ones are spline. And I'm just adjusting their tangency just to make sure I have a nice smooth camera. Okay, rewind again. We'll play again. I just don't want it to just hit the thing and then stop. I want it to keep going. Okay, that looks good. Now keep in mind too that I could also create multiple cameras. I could make a new one, not show that. And where these guys are flying into the thing, I can have a camera be, you know, on the planet itself. Let's see, let's find a good angle for this. And again, we'll adjust our focal length. See, adjusting it to 15, we really get a nice dynamic feel to this. Alright, so here we go. We're just sitting here. All of a sudden we'd have these things flying at us. Okay, so that could be another cool angle. Let's call this planet cam. And we could even add a little bit of jostling to the camera. So let's say at about, I don't know, 185. Okay, I'm going to freeze the transformations of the camera. Or not. Freeze. Okay. It's actually the first time I've ever tried to do that. Apparently you can't freeze the transforms. No big deal. I'm going to group the camera to itself. I'm going to center pivot the camera. And then I'm going to call this Planet Cam Shake. Okay. So we know at about 185 we want the camera to shake. So I'm thinking that just a little bit of X movement would do that. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to go to Planet Cam Shake. I'm going to go to the X here and go to Edit Expressions. So I'm going to say point of the cam shake equals translate X equals rand 0, comma 1. Actually, let's go -1, comma 1. Okay, so what that expression looks like is that. That shouldn't be any crazy expression, okay? And I'm just going to do the same thing for all of them. So we'll just do Z, and then Y, and then we'll also take this, copy and paste it, and then change these to rotate. And I'll make this maybe, let's say 10 and 10. Alright, so I'm going to copy that expression. I'm going to paste it in here. So I have my translates being random between -1 and 1, my rotate between -10 and 10. Create, close, and when I play this, you'll see that the camera just goes crazy. I could say, well, that's probably too much. Let me go to my expressions and adjust my rotates to maybe -2 and 2. Let's rewind and try it again. Okay. Still maybe a little bit too much. I mean, I can adjust these things later. But it's just a lot easier now when we can get multiple iterations real quick. And I'm going to adjust these to 0.5s. So my translates will now be random between 0.5 and -0.5. And my other ones are 1 and -1. There you go. That looks like a good amount of shake for our camera. Now, I don't want this to happen, you know, before this is even hitting. You can see it looks pretty cool when it's hitting that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Modify. Nope. I'm going to go to Edit, Keys, and then Bake Simulation. Okay. So I'm going to highlight these attributes. I'm going to say from the channel box, I'm going to say start and end, because this thing is only going to be about 300 frames. Okay, so I'm going to say bake this simulation from 0 to 300, and what that does is it writes out the keyframes. So all of these things, instead of this being an expression, is now going to be keyframes. And then what we can do is we can chop off those keyframes before that time and just have it be, you know, a steady camera. Okay, so right there, that's good. And let's go to the graph editor, and it's going to look like a mess. It's confetti. So I'm going to hold down Alt and Control and use my Alt. I have to figure out what this hotkey is. There you go. Alt and Shift and right mouse button, and I can scale the stuff down. Okay, so I know at about 185, which is right there. You see the 185 on the bottom here. If I scroll up, so everything before 185, and I'm using Control Shift to marquee the extra ones. I'm just going to delete, and then all the ones at 185, I'm just going to reset to 0. Okay, so now what should happen is if I rewind this, regular camera, here comes the rockets. Oh no, the rockets are going to hit us. And then when it hits, it's just destruction. Okay, and then maybe about 237 they start to taper off. So we'll go down to 237. There we go. And I'm going to grab all of these guys. I'm going to click on my lattice key, and I'm just going to pull this down here and pull this one here, pull that one there. And what this is doing is just tapering that movement. Okay, just bringing them closer to 0. Come on. There we go. So we're going to get less movement on this side. And okay. So if you look at those curves, you can see from back here at least, a lot of movement, and then we just get little movements. Now, if this whole thing is too big, I can grab the whole thing and just go to my scale tool, keep my mouse right at the 0 line, and just hold down the middle mouse and drag it downward. You can see I can adjust how much movement I'm getting on there. Okay, and I can even move this up and down if I needed to adjust that further. Alright, so now let's see where we're at. So here we go. Now, we wouldn't show these things actually coming out of this unless we had like a reason for it. You can see we taper off nicely. Perfect. Okay, so now we have two cameras. We got our planet cam shake, and then we have our other planet, or other camera shaker. I am going to go to that keyframe, that very first one again, because it looks like it's a tad bit off. Probably when I was scaling it, it didn't line up perfectly, so I'm just going to reset that to 0. There we go. That's good. Okay. Alright, so now we have a couple cameras. We're good there. I'm going to hit play. I'm going to wait for this thing to get, somewhat full. Okay. I like the amount of debris that's in this right now. I don't want to add any more to it. So I'm happy with that. So I'm going to grab the particles. I'm going to say solvers, there it is. Initial state, set for selected. Okay. And then I can just go to the emitter and just turn off the rate. That way when I rewind it, the particles are just already there. Okay. Now they're not moving at the moment, so of course I can make them move. I'm going to go to my fields. Just make sure I grab the particles. Go to my fields, and I can add a vortex. And a vortex is exactly what it sounds like. It's just a spinner. Okay. So as I hit play, nothing's really happening. I need to turn my attenuation off. Maybe make the magnitude a bit bigger. Maybe make the magnitude a bit smaller. Maybe add a little bit of attenuation. There you go. And you can see that they're moving. Now I don't like that they're moving in that direction. Rather they move in the other direction. So I'm just going to take my magnitude to the -1 or -0.1. And now they're moving in the opposite direction. Okay. I'm also going to add a little bit of noise to those guys. So let me grab those. And I'm going to go to fields and add a turbulence to it. And this 0.1 for the attenuation should be good. And I think I'm going to take that vortex down. Let me go to my outliner, grab the vortex. I just want it to look like there's stuff happening back there. I'm going to take my turbulence field up a little bit. I don't want them to be, smashing around, but I do want there to be some movement of it. Okay. I'm going to just take it up to 50 just to make sure that it is influencing it somewhat. And I can see that they are moving around. And actually, I think I like the movement at 50. There we go. Yeah, that's looking good. I could also come down here to frequency and make this a bigger number. That way I'm getting a little bit more random movement inside here. If this number is too small, it's kind of like big, broad movements instead of tiny little movements. I just want to, just for fun, let's see what this is at 150. It'll probably be crazy. It's actually not bad. I'm going to do another initial state on this. There we go. That's the cool thing about particles. We can just keep doing initial states as we're doing it. Alright, I think our turbulence has probably got a little out of hand. Let me grab this. Now that we have some movement on it, that movement will carry over for the entire animation. So I'm just lowering that amount of movement. Okay, I can also grab the particles and maybe give them a little bit of a little less conserve, like 0.99. And that way they won't continuously move as much as they are. That looks good there. Okay, I just wanted to break it up so it wasn't in this perfect ring shape. I have stuff out here and it's still spinning around. Yeah, that looks good. Okay. Alright, so let's save again. Everything in here is pretty much organized. This is my instancer for my boulders. Let me just call this boulder instancer so I know which one it is. I have a directional light in here. My directional light is not really set up for this direction. Okay, it's pointing the opposite direction, so I'm just going to rotate that guy around like that. And then as we hit play, oops, I'll turn this back to default. As we hit play, I can render it and see what it's looking like. My planet, I left it as a Mia, but I didn't adjust any of the properties. So it's very shiny, very reflective. Way back here, these images here are also whited out. So I'll need to adjust that as well. Alright, so I'm just going to hit escape, close it. Let me first grab these guys and go check that out. They're a Lambert. So they just don't like that directional light because it just flattens it. I think there's no basic... Yeah, the intensity is up to 3, so that makes sense why it's so bright. Let's render that again and see where we're at. I mean, it is outer space, so you know we have some playroom as to what kind of lighting we would be getting from this. Okay. Now I'm happy with the way that that's turning out for those back rocks. Come on, escape. The coloring on this looks nice. Remember, we're rendering this out in layers, so I can adjust the coloring of those guys, adjust the coloring of my planet, adjust the coloring of my rockets and missiles. Okay, let me adjust my planet here. Now remember we have 2 spheres here. I put the other sphere on a layer and just hit it. I don't need to see that other sphere. I'm just going to take the reflectivity off, glossiness down. I'll set my sample to 1. I could also add a bump map to this too, just to give it a little bit more depth. Right now it looks pretty rounded, so it could add some level of dimension to it. It's so far away though it's hard to tell unless we actually just tried it and see. For now I'm just going to ignore it. Okay. Alright, so I think we're good with the shaders. We're good with some basic lights in here. I want to go through the next stage and just write out all this particle information. So I'm going to grab anything that's a particle. So here is the emitter. So I'm going to grab anything that's particle, 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 all that stuff. And I'm going to go to my solvers and say particle disk cache. And I'm going to call this particle rockets, sure. We're only going to 300, so let's say 300. And I'll say uncheck that so it uses this. And I'm going to say let's cache all the particles just in case we didn't grab one. And yes. So now what it's going to do is it's going to rewind and write out all that particle information to the hard drive. That way everything is the same from start to end. So we can scrub back and forth, we can mess around with it. and everything's cool. So I'm just going to let it go, and then I'll come back after it's done. Alright, looks like we're good. Oops. Just want to see if I went far enough. Let's rewind this a bit. That's probably good there. Okay, I don't want to show too much of that, just like having the explosion, and then, you know, it's cool. Alright, and I'm just going to verify that everything is cached just by kind of skipping around and making sure that nothing freaks out. If stuff starts freaking out, then I know that it's not cached. Alright, that's good. Okay, so we are cached, we are good. Let's save this again. If we need to delete the cache, we would just come into particle settings, particle, solvers, edit oversampling or cache settings, and then we would just say don't use cache and click that off. Okay, because it writes out one cache for everything. Alright, so that's good. Now let's go through the rendering layer process, and I'm going to make a new camera just so we have a new perspective that I'm not going to mess up. Alright, so firstly, we have some stuff hanging out here. Oops, like that. This. Alright, I'm going to take these guys and I'm going to put them on a layer and hide it, and what we're going to see most likely is that the rockets have disappeared. See that they are gone. Okay, so bring those back, and those come back. Alright, so this is one of the bad things about these, is that they just do that. They just don't disappear the way we want them to disappear. Right? So what I'm going to do, let me see if this is going to work. If I go to my group, and I say derived from my visible, no. Okay, so now I'm going to render it just to see if that does indeed make that disappear. Perspective 1. Now I should see a rocket here, no rocket there. And I see a rocket here and no rocket there. Okay, exactly what I wanted to happen. All right, so that's that guy. So let me go to these rocks. And I'm just turning the visibility off on all these rocks. Oops, I do have a boulder group. Okay, so I'm going to grab my boulder group and say no visibility. And just to be safe, I'm going to turn off all this stuff. Got my rocket group again. There we go. Okay, so now if we jump back to this view here, we should see nothing over there at the at this. But we should still see our rocket flying in the air. And we do. Now there's still something there. I think that might be our just placeholder that we created before. That can just be deleted. I don't need that anymore. Okay. So that's good there. Now looking at the scene, we have a couple elements. We have this background, asteroid belt. We have our planet. We have our rockets. We have our trails. And then as this thing collides with the ground, oops, I thought I was thinking. As it collides with the ground, we have these rocks here, and then we have the particles there. Okay. So we need to eliminate, or not eliminate, but separate all these elements. All right. So now looking at this asteroid melt, this is just going to be in the background. There's no cutting on this that needs to happen as long as we layer it correctly. Okay, if we were coming in and flying through here, then yes, there might be some, additional stuff that we may want to include, but we're not going to be doing that. Yeah, I don't think we need to fly through, especially because these are all paper. It's going to look kind of funny having this close. These are built to be background elements, not foreground elements. Okay, so we're not going to be doing that. So that's just going to be in the background. So I'm just going to go to my render layers, make sure I have that background selected, and I'm going to make a new render layer that is just the asteroid belt. Okay, and I need to make sure it's the asteroid belt, and I need to make sure there's a light on there. So grab the light and add that into that list as well. Okay, so now we have a light on those pictures. I'm going to just angle this a little bit that way more. Okay, so that's all that's on that one. If I go through and I hit the render button, that's all we're going to get is those guys. Okay, I'm going to double check. I want to make sure that that image that I brought in for that, Lambert 5, arrow, file, make sure that this filter type is set to off. Okay, just so that we get the best resolution out of those without any filtering. Okay, at that distance it's not going to be a huge change, but just in case. Alright, so that's good there. Okay, now our planet is going to be a separate element also. I don't see us needing to cut anything out of the planet, okay, except for having its mask here for the asteroid belt, because everything, again, is just happening to the planet itself. Alright, so everything's going to be on top of the planet. So we have this as our background, our planet's the second one. So I'm going to grab the light, grab the planet, make a new layer, and call this planet. And I can double check just rendering it. And that's good enough. I just want to make sure that if I go to alpha, that I indeed have an alpha cut out along the edge. And I do. So that's good there. And let's go back to our master layer. Okay, I'm going to rewind it just so we can see the rockets here. Now I'm going to take these. Now remember, these are particles. Okay, these aren't actual pieces of geometry. And you'll see that there's actually a dot there. And if I were to go through and render this, right about there, I may actually see that dot. Okay, the particles may be covering it up, we'll see. But I just want to verify whether or not I'm seeing the dot, and I definitely don't see that dot there, which is perfect. That's exactly what I want to happen. Cool. Alright, so just making sure that we didn't see the dot. If we did see the dot, we would just make sure that we went through, and I'd have to be very careful about this whole thing. Because if I hide that, is it going to hide the instance? And no. So I can do that too, just hiding it right there. If I did see it, I don't, so I'm just going to leave it the way it was. There we go. Okay, so we have the rockets, and then we have this smoke trail here. Now this one is going to be layered because if we look at this, we can see, in certain frames of this that we, sometimes we see a particle, sometimes we see the cloud, sometimes we see the rocket. Okay, you can see behind the smoke trail is another rocket right there. So I want to render out just the smoke trails, but I need to have those rockets in here too, in case, like in this case, the rocket's covering that stuff, right? So I'm going to click on the smoke trail, and I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to call this smoke. Okay, now I need to get the rockets on here too, so I'm going to go back to my master layer. I'm going to click on those rocket particles, and I'm going to add that to the smoke layer as well. Okay, now you'll see that when I add that the instance doesn't come over, so I need to go to the instance and add that as well. And I also need to go to my rocket group and add that as well. Rocket particles should be on there. They are. Rocket instancer is on there. And the rocket is on here. No, they are there. They're just not showing up correctly for some reason. Let's rewind it and see. There they are. Okay. So they were showing up. It was just a glitch. It was just not updating it. Okay. So now that we have these guys on here, I can't have them render like that. I mean, I could have them render like that, but I want to be able to separate these guys from their smoke. So if I grab this and I just assign a surface shader to it, and on this surface shader, I'm going to call it blackout. Okay, now when I render this, what we should get is black in those areas where we had the rockets. Oops. And I also need a light, so let me go back to this, grab our light, add it to that. And now we should get just the smoke trails with this little alpha channel at the tip. Okay. And remember, any texturing we've done to stuff on an individual render layer does not affect the other layers. Okay, so now if we go here, you can see that, okay, we still see that rocket, so I don't want that. Now I could use this as an addition element, where I'm simply just adding this image on top of it, but I still want to create a nice little alpha channel. Okay, so I'm going to go to my rocket texture here, and let's see. Now I'm going to have to do a different one. Okay, so I'm going to grab my rocket again, no big deal. I'm going to go to assign a Lambert. And this is going to be cut out. And on the Lambert, I'm going to go to matte opacity and then make this a black hole. Now that should do what I need it to do. So I'm just going to kind of angle this so I can see my rocket in front of some particles. And then what this should also hopefully do for us is that, there it is, perfect, cut out. We can take these glowing areas, these brighter areas of this, and make that glow. So I can use the yellow and make the yellow of this thing glow so it looks more like a fire or heat or whatever it is. All right, so let's hit escape. Let's go to our alpha channel, and you can see nice cutout perfectly around there. Okay, back to color, close that. All right, so that's good. So that layer is good. It hits the planet, and they should just disappear. Okay, rockets disappear, and those smoke clouds disappear. Alright, that's fine. Alright, so now let's go back to our master layer. Okay, and then we have the same kind of setup for these things here. Now with this, we also have, let me see if it actually goes through it all. Not really. I mean, it does a little bit there. I'm not too concerned about that. Okay, so we have the same kind of setup. I'm going to grab, easier to do in the outliner. I'm going to grab the, I'll grab the planet sphere just so we have it. The explosion particles, debris sphere. I don't need the debris sphere. Let's see, boulder instancer. I don't need the asteroid belt. Okay, that should be good. Let's make another new one. Oops, light 2. Make another new one. This will be called explosion. Oops, I did forget the trail particles. Add that in there. Okay, so now if I go here and I rewind it, and I just start scrubbing through. Let's see, did I put the boulder instancer on? I did. I see the explosion particles, I'm just not seeing the boulders inside there. That's that guy. Alright, I'm just going to grab all these again just to make sure that I have everything. Well, it should be everything right there. Make sure my boulders are indeed loaded. Oops, I think I did just see them. They just flickered. Yeah, they're definitely there. It's just not showing it up in this view. Oh, because I'm on viewport. I'm going to go back to my legacy. There we go. Now we can see it. Okay. So, same kind of setup here. We have the explosion. I want to be able to separate the rocks from the debris. And I rendered out my rockets too. We'll have to get to that. So, if I hit the render button now, I'll see all that stuff. So I'm just going to grab my spheres here, my boulders. I'm going to grab the planet, and I'm going to do that cutout. Okay, so that when we render this, we should just see the particles and no other object. Okay, and you can definitely see already that that's exactly what we're getting, is just that cutout of where the particles or where the boulders were, and now they're obviously not there. So that's good. We'll check the alpha. Alpha's good. Okay. Now this is also being cut off by the planet. So if any of the particles go in there, that they'll just disappear. Okay. All right. So now let's do the same kind of setup here. I'm just going to grab all this stuff. Oops. Grab this guy, grab these guys, and we're going to go to a new layer, and this one will be called boulders. I think it's spelled boulders wrong. It's spelled like it's bold. Alright. So now the boulders are just going to be their own color, and this stuff here is just going to be that cutout. I don't know if it's going to work on the particles. We'll see. Okay, I really want you to see what the process of creating these layers is without me saying click here, click here, click here. Because a lot of this is just trial and error. Does it work? Does it cut out what we need to cut out? Does it keep what we need to keep? And if so, then we're good. If not, then we need to go back and tweak it. And it looks like I see little boulder pieces. Obviously, I'm not going to see the full boulder because the boulder's wrapped around particles. Alright, so I'm going to hit escape. I'm going to go to my alpha. And yep, look at that. Boulder pieces. That's exactly what we wanted. Perfect. Okay. Now I could also render out just the boulders themselves on a separate layer, just so in case I wanted to add a little bit more transparency to the particles, I would have something there. But I don't want to get. I want to get the essentials of what we need. We don't need every single element at the moment. Okay. So now we're gonna do the same thing for the rockets. So we're gonna grab these rockets, grab the stuff here, grab the light, new layer. And this will be rockets. And again, I have to make sure this is on legacy. And just scrub through, make sure that I have them. I don't see them. I may need to add the group to that. back to our outliner, back to everything rocket related, and add it in there. Oh, I probably forgot the instancer. That's probably why it didn't come in. Alright, so now we have that. So we're going to grab the particles. We're going to assign that cutout to them. And again, we get at a good angle where we have rockets behind particles, particles behind rockets. And we do a little rendering and we can check it out and see. I see the rockets. There they are. Okay, and I'm looking at it. There's a rocket here, rocket here, rocket here. There's a rocket way in the back. I go to my alpha. You can see that I just have the rockets. Let me get a better angle, different angle of this just to see. There you go. There's a couple rockets right here. And I'm just kind of occluding with all the particle smoke. So we should see a couple rockets, but we shouldn't see those back ones. Okay, and I'm definitely seeing the back ones right there. Now, technically, it's not going to matter too much because if I take my smoke and I add it on top of this, the rockets are already cut out of it. Okay, so the smoke would actually just go right on top of this one. So I don't need to be too concerned about that. The other alternative I could get is if I assigned a different particle cloud to this one under new materials. Particle cloud, and I just made this black. And I made that black. Yeah, maybe it would do that. I don't think we need to worry about it though. Okay. I could probably even just take those off of that layer and let it render like that, and then when we layer the particles on top of it, then it should cut all that stuff out. And then the same thing with the boulders that is included in there. I could probably take these particles out of here because the boulders are already going to cut out of it. Alright, the boulders were showing up and now they're not, so let's go and double check why aren't the boulders showing up. There we go. So now the boulder instancer got removed from there. Alright, so that should be good. Alright, so we're going to rewind. And we could go through and render out a little test area here. Let's go back to the master layer. And if we look at about 187 to about 211, 220, we have particles for all of them. We have the smoke, we have the rockets, we have everything. We have the background. So we can go through and create a little rendering of, say, 180 to 220. And then we can go into Nuke, put all that stuff together, and make sure it all works. If it all works, then we can just render the whole thing out. Okay, so double check layers are named good. Render settings here. We're not going to do any passes for this one. Obviously, you could do some passes on some of the geometry. The particles aren't going to accept any of that. But I'm just going to leave it. So my unified sampling is up. I don't need any final gather for this. I'm going to delete the file name and just right-click and insert the layer name. And these are going to be rendered as ifs or fine. Name.number.extension. Where are we at here? We're going to render out 180 to 220. And we have perspective, and I have another camera, so I'm going to add renderable camera, planet cam. Now I know I have planet camera if I switch to that real quick. And I jump back to where I can see the rockets. If I were to render this, I'm not going to see the rockets. And the reason for that is I have one light in my scene, and that one light is just not hitting it at the exact angle that I would need to hit it from. So I'm going to take this one light and duplicate it, and just rotate it around some, like that. Now I can see the asteroid belt back here. I can see these guys. Not lighting up the way I want them to. Let me verify that it's hitting it at the right angle. Well, it looks like it is. Check, let me my defaults off. Oh, the planet here is hitting it. That's why. If I go to shadows, it's emitting shadows. So let me just turn that off. I don't need shadows being on there. So the planet was just casting a shadow on all of these. That's why they weren't being lit up. And so now that that's off, now we should see some more lighting happening. Okay, and I may even just add, instead of that light, I may even add ambient light. I may flatten the scene out a touch, but as long as I control it, I should be good. I just want to ensure that I have plenty of lighting on these things so I can see them. There's no shadows on it. I just messed up my planet camera. Oh, these are Mia shaders. The ambient light doesn't affect Mia shaders, so point light will do. Let me switch to my perspective view so I don't ruin my planet camera view. And I'm just going to put a point light down here-ish. And I'm going to turn shadows off. No need shadows on that. Okay. Now I really only need this for this one shot, just this planet camera shot, just to light up the rockets. So I'm going to turn off Illuminate by default, and I'm going to grab the light itself, shift click these rockets, and go to Lighting and Shading, Make Light Links. Okay, so now that light should be linked just to those rockets. And if I duplicate this, switch back to my planet cam, Just to verify, I'm going to go to my relationships, light linking, light centric, click on point light 1, and just make sure that the rockets are on each of these, because when I duplicated it, that didn't transfer over. Okay. So now let's see, and this may even blow them out, and I'll have to adjust them, but I just wanted to have some additional light lighting up the front of those rockets. There we go, definitely extra light hitting those. There we go. So they're just not getting lost. That's what I didn't want to happen, is that it just looks too dark and they get lost. Okay, so that's cool. Switch back to my render view. One more thing I want to create in here is I'm just going to create the sphere that would go on the outside of this. Now, because I just created a sphere, I also need to take this light and click the light, shift click the sphere, and say lighting and shading, break light links. There it is. So now that light is not lighting up the sphere, so we don't have to worry about that. And the sphere I'm actually going to use inside of use it inside Nuke, but I may just do the little trick that we did before with the planet here. I just want to have something else in the background, like a little sky, space sky. And I'm going to go to my search tools, make sure this is a huge file. That looks pretty. See, this one looks pretty neat here, except the fact that it has this yellow in here. So if we use that, it's going to be duplicated. So let me view the image, and it may also be grainy. Yeah, it looks horrible. Oops, that's what I just looked at. Yeah, that one's sufficient. So I'm going to save this image. Go. And I'm going to go to my Photoshop. Just open up that JPEG. And I want to adjust it. I don't want it to be gray back here. I want this to be black. Okay. And there's an awful lot of stars in here, and I don't think I need quite as many stars. So I could do a levels on this and maybe pull this down and get rid of some of those. I could also go to select color range, grab the black, and use my fuzziness, and I can fill that with black. And that'll eliminate them. Or I could just go in with a black brush, just arbitrarily just go through. And let me make this a bit softer. And I can even change the pattern of this, just so I don't get a pattern. There we go. You can see I'm just kind of eliminating this. It's a background. It's not the main feature. There you go. Oh, that works. I like that. Alright, so let's do our little offset trick. Filter other offset. Don't see a seam, so that's good. The other way. And I don't see a seam that way either. Okay, so we'll hit cancel. We will save the image, close it, go back into Maya. And I'm going to use this on a surface shader. That's the right one. Alright, and then I'm going to go do the same little trick, going to the UV texture editor, grabbing the UVs and just scaling it up until I get the kind of background I want. Now again, we can see repeating happening here, so I may need to shrink this down some. And also go into the file, texture, turn mirroring, turn staggering on, and then just for fun, let's go on the outside of this and do a little rendering and see what it's looking like. Right, so far it looks good. I just want speckles. That's all I want, is these tiny little speckles of different values in the background. Look like they're different distances away. I don't want to see a seam. I don't want anything crazy. Yep, it looks like exactly what I'm after. Alright, so I'm happy with that. Let me just escape. So make a new layer, and this layer will be called background. Okay, now I could have also done this in Nuke. It's pretty simple to do it right inside Maya if we just set it up right. Okay, so there we go. That's all we need for that one. Again, we'll do the background. We'll stack the asteroid belt on top of that. The planet will be on top of that layer. And then we'll be able to stack the smoke, explosions, boulders, and rockets together to get the rest of the scene to look right. Alright, so let's save it. Render settings should be good still. Perspective, planet cam. I'm just going to double check my planet cam again just because I moved it. I just want to verify that I didn't move it too far away. So here come the rockets. Okay, I really want to have them coming in like this. Yep, so I'm in the planet. You can't be in the planet. There we go. That's good. And I may even get, a little bit of the chunk and smoke and whatever. That's kind of neat. Okay. So that's cool for that. So let's save again. 17,000th time. We're going to hit render. And we're going to let it go and render out these layers. Then in a few minutes we'll come back and put that all together inside of Nuke.